I don't remember what the invitation said exactly, something about a launch event, a soft opening, Boston's culinary moment, but I do remember how Amelia looked when she told me. She was glowing, thrilled. "I've been invited as a guest PR coordinator," she said, eyes bright, voice buzzing like champagne bubbles. I smiled and said that sounded amazing. She leaned across the counter, kissed me, and whispered, "It's a big night for me." For her. Always for her. She asked if I'd come with her, not as her partner, not really, but as her plus one, like we were some marketing package. I agreed because I always did. Because that's what you do when you love someone. Or think you do. The night came fast. She wore a wine-red dress I hadn't seen before, and when I asked if it was new, she smiled like I'd caught her doing something naughty. "A little splurge," she said, running her fingers over the fabric. "Needed something with some presence." She didn't wait for me when we arrived. Just walked in like the spotlight belonged to her, like she was already part of whatever world lived inside that velvet-roped door. I trailed behind, feeling like a coat someone had forgotten to check. The place was gorgeous, exposed brick, gold chandeliers, custom cocktails with names that sounded like inside jokes among millionaires. Everyone was dressed like they'd been pre-approved by some exclusive style board. I wore a jacket that still had dry cleaner plastic on it that morning. Amelia didn't seem to notice. Or care. She disappeared into the crowd the way water disappears into sand, naturally, seamlessly. She wasn't trying to fit in. She was in. Laughing too loud, hugging people like long-lost friends, complimenting earrings and watches and cufflinks in that flirty, knowing tone I hadn't heard directed at me in months. There was a man, maybe mid-30s, sharp jawline, that expensive cologne smell you only notice because you can't stop noticing. Blue suit. Italian shoes. He hovered near her like a satellite locked into gravity. She didn't push him away. She smiled, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and let him touch her elbow when he laughed. I watched from the bar. Ordered a club soda because I didn't want to get drunk and say something I'd regret. Honestly, I didn't want to feel like I had to drink to tolerate the night, even though that's exactly how I felt. An hour in, she hadn't spoken more than a couple of sentences to me. I tried to catch her eye across the room once, just something small, something that said I'm still here, but she didn't look. Or maybe she did and looked away. Finally, I made my way over. Just to check in. Just to be seen. I slid beside her and asked if she wanted to say hi to the couple I'd met near the bar, real estate people from Newton, actually pretty nice. She gave me that soft, rehearsed smile and said, "Let's not make this about us tonight, okay?" Then she turned back to Mr. Blue Suit like I wasn't even there. I didn't say anything. Just nodded, walked back to the booth we'd claimed earlier. My face was burning, and I told myself it was just the heat in the room, the crushed velvet and tightly packed bodies. But I knew better. I wasn't embarrassed, I was humiliated. Her purse was there, flopped over like it had been dropped without care. I sat down, trying to decide if I should just leave and wait in the car. As I shifted in the booth, something slid off the seat. A piece of paper. Folded. Clean creases like it had been handled more than once. I didn't mean to look. I really didn't. But it had her handwriting on the outside. My gut twisted before I even opened it. 6 words. Not now. He's nearby. That's all. But my heart dropped like I'd read a death sentence. I stared at it, hoping it was some kind of PR shorthand or an inside joke between friends. But I knew her handwriting. I knew the way she looped her Y, the pressure she used on her downstrokes. This was written in a rush, still precise, but shaky, like adrenaline was pushing the pen faster than it should go. He didn't mean me. I sat there frozen. My hand went cold, but my face burned. I looked up at the crowd again, scanning for her. She was across the room now, near the appetizer station, talking to a different man, older, maybe late 40s, with salt and pepper hair and a Rolex that probably cost more than my car. She touched his arm. Smiled like it meant something. Suddenly the whole room felt staged, like I'd walked into a play where everyone had been given a script but me. She was fluent in this world, fluent in it in a way that required more than just PR work. You don't fake that kind of chemistry. You don't learn it overnight. Back at the table, I kept staring at the note. Was this what it felt like, being erased? Not loudly, not with a fight or a confession, but slowly, silently. One conversation at a time. One text ignored. One stranger's hand on her elbow. One note not meant for you. I should have confronted her. I should have stood up, walked over, held the paper up and asked her to explain what the hell was going on. But I didn't. I just sat there. Something in me cracked open, but not in a way that made a sound. It was quiet. Too quiet. I folded the note back up and tucked it into my pocket. I didn't want to lose it. I didn't even know why. Maybe I wanted proof for myself for later. Maybe part of me hoped that it wasn't what it looked like, that she'd laugh and say it was part of some PR gimmick or a message to someone else entirely. But I knew better. That message wasn't just misplaced. It was evidence. A thread poking out from the seams of our life, daring me to pull. So I did nothing. I sat in that booth, watching her laugh and flirt and toss her hair like nothing in the world was out of place. But everything was. Everything was cracked, whether she admitted it or not. And as the night wore on, I realized something I hadn't dared to think until now. She wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she hadn't been for a long time. That night at the party didn't end with a fight. There wasn't a dramatic exit, no shouting in the car or slammed doors. Amelia didn't even notice I was quiet the entire ride home. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. That's the thing about people who lie, they get good at pretending silence is nothing more than someone being tired. She chatted on the way back like everything was fine. Talked about how the scallop ceviche could use more acidity and how the lighting was a little harsh near the bar and how the media contacts were more influential than expected. I nodded, smiled where I was supposed to. Said nothing when she asked, "Did you have fun?" When we got home, she kicked off her heels, tossed her bag onto the chair, and disappeared into the bathroom. I took the note from my pocket and stared at it again like it might have changed in the past hour. But the words were still there, clear and cold. Not now. He's nearby. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling while her steady breathing filled the room like it belonged to someone who had nothing to hide. She curled away from me, like always, like touching me required effort. The next morning, she was up before me, already dressed in leggings, hair in a messy bun, telling me she had an early core and sculpt class she couldn't miss. Amelia never liked gyms. She used to call them sweaty boxes with mirrors. But lately, she'd become obsessed with getting centered. Pilates. Hot yoga. Spin. Except I didn't know the names of any instructors. Never saw a gym bag. And the few times I offered to join, she smiled like I'd told a joke. After she left, I checked her closet. Nothing unusual until I noticed the new perfume on her dresser, something expensive, floral, musky. The kind of scent that lingers on clothes and in the air long after someone's gone. She used to say strong perfume gave her headaches. Now it filled the house like a ghost that didn't belong to either of us. For days, I didn't say a word. I watched instead. Took mental snaps *TS. Late-night calls she brushed off as work stress. Showers that lasted too long. Gym visits that didn't leave sweat marks on the towels. It's amazing how fast a relationship can feel like an illusion once you stop assuming good intentions. Then it happened. A message. A mistake. I was in the kitchen making coffee. My phone was charging on the counter. It buzzed twice in quick succession and I glanced over automatically. Her name lit up the screen, Amelia. The first message read, "He's starting to ask questions. I hate pretending. I'm sick of feeling disgusted every time he touches me." I froze. My brain took a full 5 seconds to catch up with what my eyes had just seen. Then came the second message. "Ignore that. Meant for my sister. We were talking about a friend of hers." A lie, so fast it tripped over itself. She never messaged me about her sister. They barely talked. And even if they had, what kind of friend needs that level of deception spelled out? I just stood there, hands shaking, phone clutched like a loaded G*N. She was out at a press brunch. I could still see the image of her in that beige coat, laughing as she left like nothing was broken. I didn't reply. I didn't confront. Not yet. Instead, I *Ted the message. Saved it to a hidden folder in my cloud drive. Labeled it signal_1. Something inside me went still after that. The confusion, the denial, the desperate rationalizing, they all quieted. What remained was clarity, like the calm you feel after something shatters and you finally stop trying to glue it back together. From that point on, I started preparing, not for a confrontation, but for an understanding. The truth was no longer hiding. It was walking around our house in yoga pants and telling me lies over dinner. I backed up her old phone to my laptop while she slept. She'd upgraded recently and the old one was left in a drawer like it didn't hold a digital record of her unraveling affection. I wasn't even looking for anything specific. But sometimes when people stop loving you, their trail is like breadcrumbs they never think to sweep. I found pictures. A dozen selfies in hotel rooms. None of them with faces, just necklines, half-made beds, and champagne glasses. A couple of *TS clearly taken by someone else, Amelia laughing in a robe, holding a spoonful of creme brulee. The metadata showed locations nowhere near her supposed conferences. I didn't even feel rage anymore. That surprised me. What I felt was numb recognition. Like remembering where you put your keys after hours of searching. I wasn't the one she texted when she had good news. I wasn't the one who got real smiles or real stories. I was a roommate, a safe placeholder. That same week, she got home late from a friend's birthday. Her lipstick was smudged. She wore heels I hadn't seen before and a thin gold chain around her neck she claimed was just a gift from a coworker. I noticed the faint line where a ring had been and wasn't anymore. It wasn't her wedding ring, she still wore that. This one was different. Subtle. Slipped off quickly. I logged into our shared account later that night. Checked the charges. One from a boutique hotel near the harbor made just after 11 p.m. when she said she was getting dessert. I didn't sleep again. I started keeping a file. I'm not proud of it, but I needed to stay grounded. It was easy to gaslight yourself when the person betraying you was also the one cooking you dinner. Every note, every inconsistency went into the file. The missed calls. The sudden client meetings. The receipts. The changes in scent. Even her new skincare routine, ones she said were from an influencer collab but were billed under someone else's Sephora account. I named the file signal_archive. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. I watched. And the more I watched, the more I realized I wasn't preparing to prove she was lying. I was preparing to let go of the man I used to be. The one who trusted blindly. The one who forgave without evidence. The one who believed that love, real love, couldn't exist alongside secrets. But now I knew better. She was slipping away from me in real time. And she wasn't afraid. That was the worst part, how comfortable she was lying to my face. She didn't flinch anymore when I hugged her. She didn't blush when she lied. She was already living in another life. And I was just the background noise she hadn't turned off yet. I used to tell myself I'd never be that guy, the one who checks phone records, who memorizes passwords, who tailgates his partner through the city. I thought trust was sacred, something that should never be violated from either side. I still believe that. But once someone tosses that trust away like it's just another receipt in their purse, all the rules change. It was a Thursday when I finally decided to follow her. Amelia had said she was heading to the South End for dinner with an old friend she hadn't seen in years, just catching up, she said while tying her hair back and spritzing on the perfume I used to think of as ours. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, barely grazing the skin. Don't wait up, she added, grabbing her phone. I gave her a full 10-minute head start before I left. I took my car, turned the lights off until I was 3 blocks out and followed slowly. I knew I was being paranoid, but it didn't feel crazy anymore. It felt necessary. I stayed a few cars behind, relying on red lights and turns to keep the distance manageable. She didn't notice. She never looked back. She drove past the South End, past the restaurants she name-dropped on her way out the door. She turned into the financial district, quiet this time of night, the skyscrapers casting long shadows over near-empty streets. And then she parked outside a sleek glass-fronted building with no signage. It looked more like a law office than a restaurant. Amelia stepped out and checked her reflection in the car window. Smoothed her dress. Reapplied lipstick. Then she waited. 5 minutes later, a black BMW pulled up. A man stepped out, tall, lean, confident. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't worried. He moved like he'd done this before. I recognized him instantly. Not by name. I still didn't know his name. But I knew of him. I'd seen him before once at an industry mixer Amelia dragged me to months ago. He hovered near her all evening like a dog waiting for scraps, laughing a little too hard, standing a little too close. She'd introduced him as Dylan, I think, with a casual shrug like he barely registered. But she remembered him. Clearly. He walked up to her, didn't even hesitate. Put a hand on the small of her back like it was his right. She didn't flinch. She smiled. I parked across the street, behind a tinted sedan, engine off, windows cracked. My hands trembled as I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the dash cam I'd installed last year, originally for safety, not surveillance. I tapped the screen to start recording, just in time to catch the two of them heading toward the building's side entrance. They didn't rush. No glances over their shoulders. Just two people slipping inside a place that wasn't supposed to exist in the story I'd been told. There were no lights on in the building. No one else inside. This wasn't dinner. This wasn't a catch-up. This was planned. I sat there watching the glass, waiting to see if they reappeared. They didn't. My stomach turned, but I kept the camera rolling. Part of me hated what I was doing. But the other part, the part that hadn't slept in weeks, that kept tallying inconsistencies and lies like they were beads on a string, that part felt oddly calm. I waited 30 minutes. When they came back out, Amelia's hair was down. She laughed at something he said, touching his shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a peck. It wasn't experimental. It was slow. Intentional. Her hand rested on his chest like she belonged there. I snapped a still from the dash cam just enough to catch her profile, his hand on her waist, the expression that said this wasn't new. This was practiced. They parted a few minutes later. He got back into the BMW and pulled away. She lingered by her car for a moment, checked her phone, then drove off in the opposite direction toward the south end. Toward the lie. I didn't go home right away. I drove instead. Just aimless circles around the city. Past familiar coffee shops, old haunts, the park bench where I proposed. It all felt like a movie set now, painted walls with nothing behind them. I pulled into a 24-hour diner eventually, ordered coffee I didn't drink, and stared at the screen capture on my phone. There she was. The woman I loved, built a life with, sacrificed for, caught in a single frame that tore everything down. She didn't even look guilty. When I got home, she was already in bed. Lights off, door cracked. I stepped into the room and stood at the edge of the bed, just staring. Her face was peaceful in sleep, lips slightly parted, like the night had taken nothing from her. Maybe it hadn't. The next morning, I waited until she left for a vendor meeting before I set up the still from the dash cam on our kitchen laptop. I wanted her to see it the moment she walked in. I left no message, no explanation, just the image on a full screen. Then I went out for a walk and waited. It took 3 hours before she texted. "Can we talk?" No apology. No explanation. Just those 3 words. I didn't respond. When I got back, she was in the kitchen, standing in front of the laptop, hands clenched at her sides. She turned as I walked in, eyes wide, lips pressed in a flat line. I thought she might try to spin it. Say it was out of context. Say it was a goodbye, a misunderstanding. She said nothing. Not a single word. Just stared at me with this look that I hadn't seen before, like the mask had finally slipped and underneath it was nothing. No regret. No defense. Just indifference. And I realized then she wasn't sorry. She was caught. I sat down at the table and met her eyes. "Who is he?" She blinked once. Twice. Then said, "It doesn't matter." I almost laughed. Almost. But something inside me cracked instead, clean, sharp. She left the room without another word. Took a long shower. Came out in a different outfit and went to work. I didn't stop her. What would have been the point? That night, I pulled the rest of the footage from the dash cam. Stored it on a secure drive. Labeled the folder, reflection_proof. There were still pieces missing and I intended to find them. But I wasn't chasing the truth for her anymore. I wasn't trying to save something that was already rotted through. I just wanted to know how deep it went. Because once you see betrayal up close, in high definition, it rewires something in you. It doesn't break you. Not exactly. It rebuilds you colder, sharper, wiser. After I showed her the still from the dash cam, something changed, not in Amelia, but in me. It was like a switch flipped. The shock was over. The grief had already burned through me. What was left was focus. I used to think betrayal was an act, a moment. Like catching someone in a lie or seeing them kiss someone else. But now I knew better. Betrayal was a process. A web that took time to spin, layered and patient. And I had been asleep in it, tangled without knowing. That weekend I started digging. Not out of revenge. Not yet. I just needed to know how deep it went. I started with the man in the photo, blue suit, smug smile, Amelia's lips still brushing his cheek. I'd only heard his name once before, and even then it was tossed off like a footnote. Dylan, she'd said, then quickly changed the subject. He wasn't on her Instagram. Not in her contacts. But I remembered something odd. A few months back, I saw a call on her phone from someone labeled Ted H. I assumed it was a client. But now it felt wrong. Too sanitized. So I ran a reverse lookup on the number. It didn't lead to a Ted Holmes. It led to a Dylan Marks. A name that sounded made up until I found him listed on LinkedIn under a boutique firm called Harbolite Intelligence Partners. Their description? Strategic risk and information management for high-net-worth clients navigating sensitive transitions. I clicked through their case summaries. Words like discreet, leveraged, pre-litigation, divorce recovery. It didn't take long to realize what Dylan actually did. He wasn't just a consultant. He was a fixer. Someone who specialized in messy breakups, high-stakes separations, and asset shielding. And Amelia was seeing him. No. Working with him. That's when I stopped looking for signs of an affair and started looking for a blueprint. I combed through shared documents on our cloud. She'd always been careless with her privacy. Trusted that I wouldn't dig. Maybe I wouldn't have if she hadn't handed me a reason. There were PDFs buried in a folder marked tax stuff. One of them was a spreadsheet labeled DS Recovery Planning V3. I opened it. My name was everywhere. Not just our joint accounts. It listed my private investments, retirement funds, My equity in a startup I co-founded 5 years ago. Even obscure things, reimbursement payments I'd deferred, a personal crypto wallet I hadn't touched in a year. Each asset had a valuation, risk category, and beside it a column marked leverage potential. That's when I knew this wasn't just about cheating. This was about removal. She hadn't fallen into someone else's arms. She'd walked, eyes open, into a system built to pull me apart cleanly, efficiently. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I waited until the next time she left for therapy. She'd started going weekly now. Claimed it helped with her nervous system regulation. I copied everything to a secure drive, then kept going. Emails, messages, voice memos she thought were deleted. And that's when I found the connection I never expected, the one that hurt more than the kiss, more than the lie. Jared, my best friend. The one I'd known since college. Best man at my wedding. Godfather to our niece. He and I had built our entire adult lives alongside each other. Dozens of Sunday barbecues. Hundreds of late-night calls. He knew everything, how Amelia and I met, what made her tick, what made me weak. In her inbox was a thread titled Timeline Plus Contingencies. The sender? jholmes1987@securemail.ch. I opened it. The signature at the bottom said Jared Holmes. I felt the blood drain from my face. The first message was dated nearly 11 months ago. Subject line, initial draft. It detailed a list of milestones. First quarter, emotional distancing. Second quarter, asset mapping. Third quarter, introduce ambiguity. Fourth quarter, extraction readiness. There were references to plausible therapy goals, controlled conflict, and worst of all, limited confrontation to preserve sympathy positioning. They were playing a long game. Gaslighting is strategy. Emotional neglect is camouflage. I read every message twice. Some were logistics. Some read like coaching scripts. But it was all there. Every step of the past year, when I thought our marriage was just under stress, had been orchestrated. One message from Amelia stood out. Dated mid-June. He's pulling back less than we hoped. Still trying to be present. I'll keep increasing external commitments, maybe add a fake freelance project to widen the gap. Jared's reply. Good. Remember, confusion is compliance. We're not trying to destroy him emotionally, just destabilize long enough to avoid resistance. You're doing great. He won't see it coming. I dropped my phone. For a minute I couldn't breathe. They were coordinating this. My wife and my best friend. Behind my back. For almost a year. I couldn't wrap my head around it at first. Betrayal is one thing when it's physical, even when it's romantic. But this was administrative. Tactical. Professional. As if I were a corporation being dismantled, not a person with a heartbeat. The plan wasn't just to cheat. It was to leave me hollow, confused, and financially weakened enough to hand over control without protest. A clean break, no mess. But they hadn't counted on the fact that silence doesn't mean blindness. They underestimated me. Amelia came home later that night humming to herself. She made a cup of herbal tea, curled up on the couch, and asked if I wanted to watch a show. I told her I had work to finish. She smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "Don't overdo it, okay?" I watched her walk away, barefoot and calm, like everything was normal. But nothing was. That night, I started my own plan. I made backups of everything: emails, documents, *TS, printed copies, multiple flash drives. I created aliases, opened new accounts, changed security settings on my finances. I made a list of everything I'd need in the weeks ahead: forensic accountants, legal consultations, digital security experts. I called in a favor from a cousin who worked in cybersecurity. I didn't explain everything. Just said, "I think I'm being set up." He said, "Say no more." I'm in. There would be no confrontation. No shouting match. Just a clean, deliberate pivot. The same way they'd planned mine. But first, I had to watch her one more time. Not because I needed proof, but because I needed to see how deep the lie ran. And I had a feeling she was about to give me exactly what I needed. Every con has a weak point. No matter how polished the performance, no matter how airtight the plan, someone always slips. Maybe it's arrogance. Maybe it's carelessness. But there's always a crack. Amelia made hers on a Tuesday. It started like any other day, light conversation over breakfast, soft music playing in the background. She asked me if I wanted almond or oat milk in my coffee. I picked oat. She smiled like we were just two people going about life together. But she was distracted. Her phone buzzed 3 times while she stirred honey into her tea. She didn't check it immediately. That alone told me something. Amelia always checked her messages the second they came in. She had her notifications customized down to the app colors. But today? She let them sit, glanced at them sideways, and flipped the phone face down. When she got up to shower, I made my move. I didn't need to unlock the phone. The preview notifications were still visible on the lock screen. 2 were from an encrypted email app 1 didn't recognize. The third, the mistake, was a reminder notification. Draft ready, update to AZ Council. Confirm before end of day. She hadn't turned off push alerts. I didn't recognize the sender, just a vague address, legal.outreach.az@protonmail.com. Arizona. We didn't have anything in Arizona. But I knew what she did now. I waited for the water to start running upstairs, then went to her laptop. It was open on the dining table, angled away like she meant to close it and forgot. Her password hadn't changed. That was her mistake. Or maybe her overconfidence. I clicked through her email. Nothing. Too clean. But then I opened her drafts. And there it was. The subject line. Initial filing conversation, Flagstaff family law. I opened it and my stomach turned. The body of the email was meticulous, almost surgical. It outlined our finances, both shared and individual. It listed property ownership, income brackets, even projections for the next 3 years. She'd included bullet points on potential legal obstacles, notes on how to minimize emotional leverage on my part, and flagged certain accounts for probable cooperation resistance. There was even a line that read, spouse unaware of preparatory steps. Emotional state passive. No major conflict logged. Predictable exit possible by Q3. She was timing her exit like it was a quarterly business review. There was another draft labeled Secondary Contact Plan. It contained instructions to her contact at Baywind Strategies LLC, an entity I'd never heard of. She listed it as a consulting shell owned in part by a J.H. Jarrett. I felt sick. The paper trail had always been there, just hidden under the assumption that I'd never look. I dug deeper. She'd been moving money in small, unnoticeable transfers for months. $300 here, $500 there. Always under generic labels, consulting reimbursement, freelance retainer, marketing deposit. Just enough to stay off my radar. But I tracked it. Each transaction had gone to the same account under Baywind Strategies LLC, registered in, you guessed it, Jared's hometown in upstate New York. I checked the Secretary of State's online registry. There it was. Baywind Strategies LLC. Registered agent, Jared Holmes. There was a line in the documentation that really sealed it for me. Under primary services, they'd written, client-forward strategic advising and transition logistics. That's not a business description. That's a cover. I pulled the last 6 months of our joint account records. I did the math. Over $46,000 had been siphoned from our shared finances and funneled into that shell company. And not just in cash. She'd also been transferring digital assets, small Bitcoin allocations I had long since forgotten. She'd used an old shared Coinbase account we opened when crypto was still just a novelty. Gone. I wasn't angry in that moment. I was something worse. Clear. It all lined up. The emotional withdrawal. The bizarre schedule changes. The sudden fascination with independence, with solitude, with wellness. The extra trips she took to see her mother, the nights she claimed to be working late, the fake fitness obsessions. It was all part of the structure. A controlled burn of our marriage. And now I had the receipts. I printed everything. Both emails. The bank records. The state registry entry. I took *TS. Saved local copies. Uploaded encrypted backups to drives she didn't know existed. I even ran a forensic export of her cloud activity. My cousin had walked me through how to mirror her iCloud account. Amelia had unknowingly backed up half her digital life into a folder labeled Personal Journal. There were even voice memos. One stood out. June 12, 10:48 p.m. A breath. Then her voice. Okay, I'm logging this so I can review with Jared later. Today he said the Q3 window is still good and Dylan's confirmed the strategy's sound. Mark's been passive. I don't think he suspects anything yet. But I'm getting tired of pretending. If we don't move soon, I'm going to slip. There it was. The whole playbook. Jared was giving the timeline. Dylan was confirming the strategy. And I was the mark literally and figuratively. I sent myself the audio file. Named it June Confession. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I needed more time. I had no intention of playing into her timeline. I was done reacting. From here on out I controlled the pace. So I started bleeding things out of our joint life, slowly, quietly. I began rerouting direct deposit payments to my private account. Canceled one of the credit cards we shared, claiming it had been compromised. Swapped the locks on the P.O. box I'd stupidly shared with her. She didn't notice. Not yet. Because Amelia was too confident. Too assured in her execution. She believed I was still in the fog. Still clinging to hope. She thought I was broken, pliable. And that was her critical mistake. She never looked over her shoulder. She never expected I'd keep my mouth shut and my eyes wide open. The next week, she came home from a meditation retreat and dropped a reusable water bottle onto the kitchen island like she'd just climbed a mountain. Feel any more enlightened? I asked. She smiled. Just clearer. She had no idea how ironic that was. That night, while she slept, I took the final step. I logged into her hidden Proton Mail account she hadn't logged out after drafting her attorney email. From there, I downloaded the entire thread history with her legal counsel and Jared. It took hours to convert and catalog. I built a report. Tabbed sections. Headings. Cross-referenced financial records, emails, audio transcripts. I even made an index. When I finished, I stared at it 3 inches thick, weighing more than truth should have to. Her betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was evidence. And soon it would become leverage. But first, I had to make a choice. I could confront her. Blow it all up. Or I could keep moving silently, piece by piece, until I took back everything she thought she'd stolen. I chose silence. And that's when things really began to shift. Retaliation didn't look the way I thought it would. I didn't smash plates. I didn't scream or pack bags in a fury. I didn't even raise my voice. Instead, I made a phone call. Hey Jess, I said. I need a favor. Jess is my cousin, tech-savvy, brilliant, a little bit paranoid. She used to work in digital forensics for a private firm before going freelance. If anyone could trace encrypted activity, expose hidden financial paths, and keep it all quiet, it was her. I gave her everything. My backup drive. The voice memos. The emails. I told her to dig carefully, especially into Jared's side of things. She asked me once if I was sure I wanted to see it all. I've already seen enough, I told her. Now I just want to make sure they do too. She found more than I expected. There were emails between Jared and Dylan discussing reducing Mark's liquidity and even a draft document titled Relationship Deconstruction Timeline. Jared had been billing Amelia as a private client through Baywind Strategies. His firm had a track record of facilitating high-asset divorces quietly with strategic leak threats, manipulated valuations, and if needed, planted narratives. They wanted to break me down, make me a ghost in my own life. So I flipped the script. I printed everything. Full-color copies, indexed, labeled. One packet went to Amelia's chosen law firm, delivered anonymously. Another to Jared's company's board of directors. No message. No threats. Just the truth. And then I called my attorney. I didn't file for divorce. I filed for annulment, fraudulent marriage under pretense, and financial manipulation. I cited documented collusion, predatory intent, and deceptive asset maneuvering. The evidence spoke for itself. That night, I came home, packed a small bag, and placed the keys on the kitchen counter. No note. Just silence. I didn't need a grand exit. Just a clean one. It's been 6 months. I live in a quiet suburb outside Providence now. The kind of town where no one asks where you came from, only if you'd like a cup of coffee and maybe help shoveling your driveway. I freelance in digital publishing, set my own hours, and spend most mornings reading instead of second-guessing my life. Amelia lost her legal team less than a week after that envelope landed on their desks. Jared's board launched an internal investigation. He was relieved of his duties, according to a press release I found online. I didn't need revenge. I just needed clarity. And space. I changed my name legally. Switched banks. New accounts. New email. Only a handful of people know how to reach me. The rest can wonder. Sometimes I think about that night at the party, the note, the way she touched someone else's arm like it meant nothing. That was when it all started unraveling. That was when I first felt like I was watching my life from the outside. Yeah? I'm no longer watching. I'm living again. I didn't ghost her to be cruel. I vanished to be free. And that, I've learned, is what power really is, not control, not confrontation. Silence. The kind that speaks louder than any apology ever could.